Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock, and this is City of Heroes on the Rebirth server. We are with Quintessence Lass, our level 41 brute who has 11.7 million XP, a quarter of a million to go to get to level 42. And our next set of enhancement slots, 29 million influence, and we're on a story arc for Madeline Casey. We've been shopping around the carnival mask that we found, and she's been getting strange, and I took a few days off. I was actually playing a little bit on the Homecoming server with my Titan Weapons Brute, who's now, I think, ninth level, and still not really into Titan Weapons yet because I've spent a couple of power choices on combat and super jump so that I could move around a lot more quickly. So, and then I'm going to have to get some more defenses. So it's going to actually take me a while before I get the Titan weapons in. That's my own choice. You know, I chose to get the movement powers done first. You can do it however you want, obviously, in this game. But I did that because I was waiting for 3 days to go so I could auto-complete the Defeat 45 Carnival and Defeat 45 Ridiculous mission that she gave us. And then there were a couple of kind of just go talk to a contact missions that I didn't feel like it was worth filming. So now she says the soul of Nathan Crane believes it can lead you to a secret Midnight Squad library. I guess that's worth a shot. After all, the Carnival really is interested in this Sicilian stone, which is the stone they're looking for. It can't hurt us to learn more about it. Go get one of those tomes. So now we're going to go back to Founders Falls and look for this tome. So it's been four or 5 days. I think the last time I played this was Sunday. Today's a Thursday. So in between times, of course, we got our veteran rewards. 2 more decks of cards, 10 draws, 5 cards each deck, and I didn't get a single reward merit. It's like when I was ignoring them, I was getting them left and right. When I wanted to get like an ATO enhancement or something else, I was getting the stupid reward merits left and right. Now that I'm trying to get the reward merits, I can't get them. It's just hilarious. But, I mean, we're fine. If we don't ever get another set on this character, she's absolutely fine. I would eventually like to get Touch of Death on Midnight Grasp, both because it's a nice set, but also because I think Touch of Death is incredibly thematically reasonable for Midnight Grasp, right? They're both touches. I think Touch of Death would be great there. I did craft a couple of enhancements. These are not usable yet, but they will be as soon as we ding level 42. And I'm prepping them for the next slots that I'm going to use. I'm going to put a slot in Focused Accuracy and put this Endurance on it. I'm going to put a slot in Energize, put the Health on it. I'm going to put a slot in Soul Drain, put the Recharge on it. And that'll get us 5 slotted in each of these 2 powers, and that'll do us until level 43 when we can 6 slot those 2 powers and get a 3rd slot in Focused Accuracy, and then all of that will be done. And by then, maybe we'll have our Touch of Fear set, our Touch of Death set, rather, on Midnight Grasp, and that may be the last set I do for this character. It just depends on what else we can get hold of. So as soon as we hit level 42 and we've got dual enhancers, we're going to try moving up to +3. Don't know if I'm going to stick, because last time, as we saw, moving to ×2 and ×3 was just not super fun because of how long it was taking to do encounters. But I think I'm +3 with Focused Accuracy running 24/7, or at least can run 24/7 when we're fighting +3s and +4s, and especially the +4s is what we need it for. We should be okay, especially if we're able to run with 2 columns of yellows. Now she's going to go intangible. Not yet. Now she's intangible. So we just have to wait for her to become tangible again. One of the things I don't like about these guys is they violate the kind of sacrosanct rule of role-playing games, which has been true in, I think, probably every other role-playing game besides City of Heroes that I've ever played, which is if you are D-solid or intangible, whatever, you cannot... the material world cannot affect you, but you cannot affect it. Like, generally, certainly in Champions, you go D-solid, nobody can hit you, but you can't hit anybody else, right? You can't attack solid creatures while you're D-solid. And I think at some point, maybe in 5th edition, they might have created some sort of an advantage. I think maybe 4th edition affects solid for when you're desolid made is a huge, incredibly expensive, like a +2 advantage, which triples the cost of the power. Um, but normally by default in most gaming systems and just in most like fantasy and science fiction, a desolidified or intangible character can't be affected by physical forces, but also can't affect the physical world. And I don't like that the illusionists sort of violate that rule. And they go desolid and then they can still affect you, which they shouldn't be able to do. It's sort of like how some of the villains can go stealthed and still attack you, even though they're stealthed, and they don't get de-stealthed, which you do. I mean, like as a character, right? Even a hidden stalker, when they attack, becomes visible. Even though hide is still engaged, they can be seen. And I feel like that makes sense. You shouldn't be able to, and that sort of goes all the way back to original D&D. Making an attack cancels the invisibility, and of course, that's done for a game mechanical reason, which is that being able to attack while invisible and no one can see you is basically an I win button, right? It makes it everything too easy. And so that's why the original designers of D&D, Dave Arneson and Gary Gygax, I assume that's why they designed it so that attacking cancels the invisibility, because it just makes you too powerful, right? It's an I win button. Then nobody can hit you, and you can hit anybody, and you can move anywhere without being seen, and they can't see you, and you can see them, and it just makes you too powerful. But for whatever reason, the designers of City of Heroes did not see fit to use those sort of classical balancing techniques of most role-playing games with their NPCs. Now, I understand part of it. You know, the NPCs have to cheat because they are stupid and they're so much weaker than the heroes. And the AI is pretty dumb. I mean, it's not bad AI for circa 2004 or 5, but it's generically pretty dumb, and so they have to compensate by, having it cheat. But although I understand that, sometimes the AI does have to cheat. Why am I missing this one fencer so much? Although I understand that sometimes the AI does have to cheat to make the game challenging, I think as a designer, it's incumbent upon the designer to try and make it so that at least the cheating isn't so insanely blatant that it's noticeable, right? It should be subtle enough that I don't notice it. For example, in games like Europa Universalis, what they'll do, like say the game is on hard mode, is they'll just give you a larger penalty to your diplomacy. So they make it harder for you to ally with other nations, and the other nations can still ally, the AI nations can still ally with each other. And so if it's harder for you to get allies, then you're on your own against the AI a lot, and the AI can kind of team up on you, right? But they tell you right up front that setting it on hard mode, right, automatically incurs and I'm making this up because I don't remember, but like a -25 penalty to all diplomacy, right? And so you just know that going in, that it's a blanket -25 to diplomacy. Maybe all of your units take a -1 penalty in combat, and they just tell you that right off the front. So even though the AI is, that's sort of cheating, but it's like they're telling you up front, here's what it does, right? And here's why. And they're not having the AI break the rules, right? They're just having the AI get a bonus or you get a penalty that the AI doesn't have, right? They don't have it so that, well, your troops get slowed down moving through mountains, but their troops don't. They don't do that, right? They just give you some penalties in combat. And, it's one thing, and they do that with these guys, where they'll have bosses and lieutenants that have like a base bonus to hit, right? Just an extra +10 to hit because it's a boss, or an extra +5 to hit because it's a lieutenant. That I don't mind, because that's not really breaking the rules. I can get pluses to hit too if I get the right kinds of bonuses and buff myself and down inspirations and stuff. But when you say, okay, for player characters, when the player character is defeated, all of their minions disappear. But for the villains, the NPCs, when they're defeated, their minions stay. Well, now it's not just giving them a bonus. Now it's having different rules applied to them, and that I don't like. Um, and there are lots of computer role-playing games, not just City of Heroes, where the AI is not only allowed to have buffs, but it's allowed to blatantly cheat. You know, the AI creatures can go places where your character can't go, or something like that. And that always ends up seeming, I've said this before, almost like when the AI is doing stuff in a computer game that if you did it as a player, it would be considered an exploit and you'd be banned from the server. That, to me, that's a problem. If the AI is programmed to do that, that's a problem. It shouldn't be. Right? Because now it's blatantly cheating. So I don't mind if she goes intangible, but she shouldn't be able to hit me with 2 attacks while she's desolidified. And when the Master Illusionist comes along, the Master Illusionist shouldn't be allowed to die, and then their summoned minions and all of its summoned minions just stick around for like 2 or 3 real-world minutes and keep fighting you and attacking you, even though their owner is dead. Right? This is breaking the rules because you can't do that with your character. Beyond that, it's also tactic breaking, because when you're fighting an enemy in any role-playing game, if you see that there's a mastermind type character, somebody, or a necromancer that's summoning the undead, whenever you've got a character, my gosh, look at the size of this map. Whenever you got a character, an enemy, where out of a group of enemies, one enemy is summoning others, whenever you have that case, it's always good tactics to go after the summoner, right? Because you get them and all of their minions out. And what City of Heroes is doing by allowing the defeated enemy's minions to stay on the battlefield and you have to keep fighting them, is that even when you do the tactically correct thing and take out the mastermind first, right, you don't benefit from it, and so it's not necessarily a tactically good thing, right? And so this is where they're actually making the AI cheat to negate the good tactics of a really good player. That's, to me, even worse than just regular AI cheating, right? Well, let's have, if the player is smart enough to have their character do this thing, which is the tactically smart thing to do, let's just make it not be useful, right? Let's negate the tactics. And I don't really like that either. To me, if you do something tactically intelligent, you should get a reward for that. Right, just like the cairns. If you're smart enough to pull the enemy out of the cairn, we got to defeat all, so we're going to have to go back and clean this up. I didn't realize that. I thought we were just clicking glowies, because I didn't read the text. Oh no, we got everybody. If you're smart enough to pull the Devouring Earth out of the quartz, or out of the cairn, or out of the fungi, out of that radius, and you do the tactic correctly so that it works, you then should get the benefit of having that having made that tactical move. And instead, they just, as soon as they come out of it, they just put down another one. So there's almost no point to drawing them out, right? And that frustrates me, because I want it to be the case that when I do something tactically clever, I get the reward for being a good tactician. And it frustrates me as a player that they coded some of the AI to basically thumb its nose at you. I don't care how good of a tactician you are, you're still going to have to deal with my effect. And that, to me, that's poor design. They didn't do that much in City of Heroes, but the cairns and the quartz and the Master Illusionists and some of the others, that, to me, those guys have some effects that make it so that your tactical moves are either ignored or negated, or maybe even end up being worse than if you hadn't done tactics at all. And I really don't think that it should be like that in any role-playing game. All right, let's talk to Madeline, who says, "Good work on those tomes, Quintessence Last. It sounds like you snagged them right from under the nose of the Carnival of Shadows. We might have to enlist Cadeo Castro again. Maybe his practiced eye can tell us why the Carnival are so interested in the strange Sicilian stone." So that's going to be our next mission, probably. How are we doing on enhancements here? We didn't get much, just a single origin. A magic origin. So let's call her back, and she says, no matter how many times I try to get the word out about... Oh, wait, here it is. I'd like you to take those tomes to Cadeo Kestrel to study. So off we go. Cadeo is in this zone, so it'll be a very quick trip. I don't know if you... just as I started, I got a ping, a beep from one of my from my best friend, who's the guy that watches Critical Role, and he was actually talking about that. And I'm just going to... Something a little funny, I'm going to mention that, but let's read Cadeo's comment first. Thank you, my friend. You know, the Sicilian stone was once used to imprison the soul of a duke who wore the stone upon his breast. The stone gradually sucked in the man's soul until there wasn't anything left of him. It's been years, of course, but perhaps the carnival knows where to find it. Now we're going to call up Madeline, who says, job well done, Quintessence lass. I'm sure Cadeo will be able to tell us more about the carnival's motives in short order. You might as well go save some of those pesky citizens you love so much. I'll be here waiting when you get back. And then the next mission is... Cadeo Kestrel says he's finished studying those books. Go talk to him. So, of course, we're right here, so we're going to talk to him. And he says, I have grave news for you, my friend. When you battled the carnival at that library, they weren't searching for the Sicilian stone. Oh, are we being ambushed? We are. Hello, boys. Let me just get into a better position. You're not going to hurt Cadeo Kestrel, are you? He's not a super, you know. If you really want to beat somebody up, you could beat him up. Might be a little more intelligent on your part, but you guys are pretty dumb, so we'll just beat you. He says, do you remember that pendant the carnival stole from Madeline Casey? It was the Sicilian stone. By the time you recovered it, the carnival had already empowered the stone. When Madeline Casey put it on, it began to access the carnival's... She began to access the carnival's memories. But none of us realized that the exchange was not one way. Every time Madeline Casey remembers something else, a portion of her soul is sucked into the stone. Then it is the carnival's to command. If we don't restore her soul quickly, it will belong to the carnival. I know a ritual that may help, but I'll need some rare herbs. So that's bad. So now we have to find the herbs in Founders Falls. So here we go. So, yeah, my friend was responding to a taunt. I used my internet taunt power. So, as I've told you all before, my friend is a very big fan of Critical Role. He watched the entire, whatever it was, 115 or 16 episodes of Season 1 of Critical Role, and then he watched all of Season 2. There are, I believe, about 131 or 2 or 3 episodes as of tonight. Tonight's a Thursday, which is why he beat me. And he's been slowly catching up to it, well, quickly catching up to it. And in a period of about 6-7 months, he watched a couple of years worth of Critical Role episodes, watching it basically 2 or 3 or 4 nights a week with his wife, who also enjoys Critical Role. It's all fine. And again, I think one of the reasons he watched it so much is just because it's a pandemic and he has nothing better to do, in the evenings and stuff, because he can't go out. Again, that's all fine, but I've been sort of teasing him a little bit because he's closed in on it, and I've been saying, when are you going to actually catch up? And he's like, oh, I don't think it'll happen that quickly, and then it happened last week. I believe he finally caught up with Critical Role. So the show is on every week on Thursdays for 4 hours, I guess, during prime time. I don't know if it's 8 o'clock Pacific time or 8 o'clock Eastern time that it starts, or 7 o'clock, not quite sure. I've never watched it live, and neither... For all that he is a fan of the show, neither is he, because he spent all this time watching YouTube videos catching up. So he's finally caught up to it. And he caught up to it on, I think it was Sunday. Or at least he mentioned Sunday that he had caught up. And because he thought he had one more episode to go, I think, and he was like, oh yeah, we're caught up. And so I said to him, well, now you're going to have to ask the phrase of the show. One of the things they say at the close of the show every week, since it's a Thursday show, is it Thursday yet? Right? The idea is that people are excited to watch the show, and they're constantly asking, is it the day of the show? And so he even jokingly said at the end of, I think, our second session, we play on Saturdays, every other Saturday, he said, "Is it Saturday yet?" Like at the end of our show, of our not show, our session, and so we all laughed, and I said, "Well, actually, you mean is it every other Saturday yet? Because we don't play every week." And so he hasn't had to ask the question, "Is it Thursday yet?" Because he's been able to watch it any night he wants, which is true for me too. When I was watching it, I wasn't watching it live. So I mean, I registered that there was a has a Thursday, is it Thursday yet, meme, but it didn't have any meaning for me, and it didn't have any meaning for him either until Sunday when he finished watching, or realized that he'd finished the night before, I think, watching the last episode, and now he has to wait for a live episode. And there's a Guardian, which sucks. So let's go ahead and do Soul Drain. And then he's going to put out the quartz, and we'll walk out of it. Did he not put it out? It's going to come out. It's got to come out. It always comes out. So I said to him, now you're going to have to ask, is it Thursday yet? Right? And he said, yeah, I guess so. So to tease him, because I know he's really, he's kind of impatient to see it again, right? He's so used to being able to watch it whenever he wants, and now he can't. I've been teasing him all week by sending him a text message saying, is it Thursday yet? Is it Thursday yet? So I asked him on Monday, is it Thursday yet? And he's like, LOL. And then I asked him on Tuesday, is it Thursday yet? And he's like, ha ha. And I asked him last night, is it Thursday yet? And he said, cut it out. So that tonight I went and asked him, is it Thursday yet? And that the beep that you heard right as the show was beginning was him responding to me. I'm not sure. It's 8:30 Eastern time. I don't know when the show actually runs. It may be on right now. He then actually messaged me a second time, and but I've muted it so you didn't hear it. He messaged me a second time, and he asked me something about the dungeon that they're going through. So maybe it's not running yet. I'm not sure. But I've been just driving him a little nuts. We like to mess with each other and tease each other and kind of give each other a hard time. And so I've been driving him nuts all week, asking him if it's Thursday yet. What I've been waiting for him to say is, don't you know how to use a calendar? But yeah, I've been teasing him because he hasn't had to ask that question because he hasn't had to wait. So it's been kind of fun to tease him a little bit. He's also watched some Savage Worlds and didn't know he was watching it. So apparently the guys who play Critical Role, some of them with a couple of other people, I guess friends of theirs, started playing did like a 2-hour, like a 4-part Savage Worlds playthrough of Deadlands. They called it Undeadlands, and he was watching that, and he just told me he was watching it. I said something about what game system is it, right? I thought I knew, but I wasn't sure. And he said, I'm not sure. And then he said, I think it's called Dead World. And I said, oh, is it Deadlands? And he said, yeah. And I said, that's Savage Worlds. And he wrote back and said, no, it's Deadlands. And I said, that's Savage Worlds, because Deadlands is a Savage setting. It's one of the Savage Worlds settings. And he was like, oh, he didn't realize that. And then he said something like, as we were going back and forth, I said, yes, I think that's the case. And he said something like, they just did their first roll. It was a notice check. I said, yeah, that's Savage Worlds. Right, they do notice checks in Savage Worlds, which would be called in a lot of other games perception checks. Right, in Champions, City of Heroes, well, not City of Heroes really, but Champions. I don't know what they call it. Detect here, like when something goes invisible. Obviously, D&D, modern D&D calls it perception checks. A lot of other games call it perception checks. Not sure of any other ones that call it notice besides Savage Worlds. Not sure what Call of Cthulhu calls it, because I haven't actually played that game. It's really often hard to remember what what the different skills and stuff of a game are, even after you've watched it a lot, if you have never actually played it. I'm gonna try to move into a position where I can actually see this guy. And be in a position where we can beat up the cairn as well as him. So yeah, it's it's actually quite difficult when you're used to being able to kind of watch a show on demand because you're way behind, and then all of a sudden you're caught up, and now you have to wait every week for it. Or like I remember with comic books, this same friend of mine, he's like, "Hey, I think you'd love, Legion of Superheroes or X-Men or something." And so then he would loan me his X-Men, and I remember X-Men in particular. He had some reprints of the original X-Men that were very cool, like from the 50s and 60s. He actually had a big thick book of reprints of stuff, and it had like the first, I think, three or four X-Men in it, in black and white, I believe. And then he had some from the X-Men in their like 40s and 50s issue range, like toward the end of the run, that he had as reprints that were like graphic novel sized. And then he loaned me his paperback book, black and white sized copy of Giant Size X-Men #1, which was when they rebooted the X-Men. And then he had a whole bunch of them, like just not every issue, but some of the issues from like X-Men, say 109 to like 129 or something, which is where the Dark Phoenix saga starts. Um, and then he had the entire Dark Phoenix saga, which was very cool, to the Death of Phoenix, and then the Days of Future Past, and then he skipped a couple, and then he had a whole bunch more, and it went like he had most of them from like number 130 or something to like number 171, which was the last issue, right? And then I got to 171 and I read it, and I was like, okay, I'm ready for the rest. And he's like, there are no rest. I said, what do you mean? He said, that's it. The next one comes out this month. And then after like reading, he was bringing me like in school. He would bring them in his like bag, and so he would bring me like three or four issues, and then I would read them, and I'd bring them back to him, and then he'd bring me the next three or four. So this was maybe twice a week. He would bring me three or four issues, and I would read them, over a course of a couple days. Like, so say maybe Monday, he would hand me three issues, and I would read them one Monday night, one Tuesday night, one Wednesday night, bring them back to him Thursday, and then Friday he'd bring me three more, and I'd read them over the weekend. And so I basically got used to reading an X-Men issue every day, pretty much. Sometimes if it was like really suspenseful and I wanted to know what happens next, I'd read all three of them in a day and bring them back right away, right? And now all of a sudden I'm in a position where, okay, I can't read them until next month. And it was really rough because I was so used to just reading them whenever I wanted to. Now I've got to wait. And it took me a little while to kind of get adjusted to the fact that I can't just read an X-Men whenever I want. Oh, I missed a guy. So I can sympathize with where he's coming from, right? Because he's been watching for I guess on the order of a year, maybe year and a half. Pretty much, I would say the entirety of the pandemic and a little bit before. He's been used to just watching an episode of Critical Role whenever he wants. Whenever he and his wife have time, they just watch. And I'm not running out of this course because it's just the Guardian, so who cares if he auto hits me? It's just one guy. He can't do enough to me before I defeat him. So I'm not going to run from him. It's only when there's like 5 guys around you that you've got to get out of there because they all auto hit, and then you just take too much damage. So yeah, I can definitely sympathize. Although having it still ongoing is at least a little bit better than when you get to the end and it's over, right? Like it's a series you've been enjoying watching in rerun, but it was already over before you started watching it. So, for example, as I mentioned, I'm rewatching the Wonder Woman series. Now, I know it's a 3-season series. Okay, there are a total of about 60 episodes. I'm about halfway done. When it's over, there are no more, right? There's nothing I can do about it. It's just done. Can't watch anymore, which is kind of a bummer too, right? And it's one of the reasons I try to pace myself. I watch an episode or two a day. I don't sit there and watch like 5 hours of it because I know the more I watch now, the faster it's going to be done, and I won't have any more Wonder Woman to watch. and I'm enjoying the series. It's kind of corny and definitely a lot of goofy parts, and it's it's just about as silly, not quite as silly, but almost as silly as the old Batman TV show. But I liked the old Batman TV show too when I was a kid, and I'm enjoying the Wonder Woman show. There have been some bad ones and some okay ones, and a couple of really good ones, and mostly I just enjoy the characters, and particularly I love Linda Carter's Wonder Woman. I think she did a fantastic job playing that character, much like, and around the same time too, much like Christopher Reeve did an amazing job playing Superman. And so, yeah, I'm enjoying it, but it's also got an end date. There's going to be an end to it, and at least for him, he can watch another one next week. Right? It's not permanently over. It's just over for the week. And even when they get to the end, I'm guessing when they get to the end of this campaign, they'll take a break for a few months maybe, and then they'll come back and do another campaign, because why wouldn't they, right? They're making money from it, and they've got a lot of fans, and it's a successful show. And my guess is that show is allowing all of the people on it to do a lot of creative things that they wouldn't have been able to do without that show, and they wouldn't be able to do if the show stopped and people forgot about it. I always remember Harrison Ford. Obviously, it's not on the same scale; it's a much bigger scale. But I remember Harrison Ford saying in an interview many years after Star Wars had come out, when he heard that when Star Wars became a smash hit, which nobody involved in it expected it to do, he said he was like, yes, and he rubs his hands together. Now I can go to work. Right now that it's been a success and everybody knows who Harrison Ford is, in other words, now I can get hired to do other movies and be a successful actor, right? Which you kind of need that first breakthrough moment, and that was his breakthrough moment. And his continued success in Star Wars then fueled his being hired to do lots of other movies, right? Like Air Force One and a bunch of other cool ones, the Indiana Jones. And Harrison Ford kind of became a bit of a staple of the movie theaters for many years as a result of the success of Star Wars. And I suspect that the success of Critical Role helps the people on it get new voice acting gigs, right? Yes, they were known in the industry as voice actors, but now I'm sure there are directors and producers who either are fans of the show or who know people who are fans of the show. If they want to know how good of a voice actor some of these people are and how good they are at, doing roles and making emotion come through their voice and stuff, they can just turn on an episode of Critical Role and watch, and then decide if they want to hire the person for their acting job. And so my guess is they're not going to want to stop. It's successful, and it helps them be successful. So I think my friend has many, many, many years of watching Critical Role ahead of him. But if he keeps watching it every week, he won't have any more years of watching it day after day after day, right? Because you can't do that when you've kept up. And that is one nice thing about kind of having to catch up to things. I've been way behind on my comics. I'm like reading comics that I bought in October now, and it's April. I just got this huge stack of them on my nightstand, and I just never get around to reading them. I'm always reading other stuff. I've been reading Lovecraft a lot, and now I'm rereading part of a mystery series that I like, because every year in May the author puts out another book. And by the way, that's another example of, someday she's going to stop writing them, and then all I'll have is that series, right? And I won't be able to read any new ones. That just happens. But because of that, I just haven't gotten around to reading these comics. And to be honest, a lot of them I'm not super enthusiastic about reading. And like the Supergirl ones, I mean, that series got canceled because it was bad. And the only reason I have them is because I like collecting Supergirl stuff, and I have every Supergirl comic going back to 1972 that was ever printed. And so I don't want to break that run. All 7 volumes I have complete. But and I feel like if I bought it, I may as well read it. But there's almost no point, because the Supergirl comic has been so bad since Peter David stopped writing Supergirl in 2003 that they're almost not worth reading. Um, in fact, they're quite literally not worth reading, even as a big fan of Supergirl. And if you're not a big fan of Supergirl, there's literally no point. They've been just absolutely terrible. And one of the problems is that they haven't really been able to stick with a single writer. They've had many different writers. They like basically every story arc they change the writers, and once in a while they have a writer stick for a long time, and it's always a really bad writer like Steve Orlando, and that's really a shame because I feel like Supergirl could be a great character if only a good writer would write her. But other than Peter David and Carrie Bates, who did it in the early 70s, Supergirl really hasn't been lucky enough to get good writers. I think the A-list writers just want to write Superman or Batman, and they don't really want to write a junior partner like Supergirl, which is unfortunate. All right. So Cadeo Castro says, thank you. Quintessence last as Madeline Casey's soul is drawn into the Sicilian stone, it becomes more and more under cardinal command. The Madam of Mystery you have faced 3 times. I haven't faced the Madam of Mystery at all. That's weird. I guess I did face her once. She is none other than the psychic protection of Madeline Casey's soul. In order to restore the soul to its proper owner, you must rip apart the psychic projection. No, not physically. You must rip it apart on a psychic level. So this is where we're going to have to go back and look up, go back into like Madeline's memories and stuff like that. She says, you and Cadeo can have your little joke, but it's very nice. It's not very nice to leave your own contact out of the loop. I am your best chance of dealing with the Carnival of Shadows. Why won't you talk to me? Well, Madeline, because you are becoming a Carnival member. All right, folks. I'm glad to be back playing this character. I enjoyed my brute on Homecoming with the Titan weapons, but this character is super awesome, and I really love her. Now, what are we doing for XP? How close are we? 1,000 XP, guys. I think we're going to level. Let's level up. Let's find somebody to beat up. Can't do it here. We're going to go to Peregrine Island. We'll find somebody to beat up and gain a level. Because each individual is like a couple thousand XP. So one like red minion will do it. And we're so close. I think we should level up, get our slots. And it can be any random guy. So it's just hit tab and whoever we find first will beat up. What do we got? Right there. I don't know if you guys are going to be enough XP, but we'll start with you. As white cons, they'll be super easy. And we leveled up! We are level 42, guys. I would not have stuck to do that if it were, you know, going to take 50 enemies, but because we were so close, and I knew it was just going to be 1 or 2, I figured it was worth going ahead and leveling up, and you guys can watch us get new slots and slot our stuff in. Right, we've already got our enhancers, so we don't even need to buy anything or craft anything. We're ready to go. And they're level 45s, and that's the second highest you can have. So is it Castle that levels us up? Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to put 1 on Energize, 1 on Soul Drain, and 1 on Focused Accuracy. Are you surprised that I remembered to do what I said I was going to do? I am. All right, so Focused Accuracy is now down to 44 100ths per second. Not quite half, but pretty good. Soul Drain is now going to recharge every... Well, it's going to be less than a minute. We'll check that when we get out there, and we're now going to be adding... healing 627 hit points per heal. Now let's just check Soul Drain because there's nobody here to hurt, but it'll just tell us. It's down to a 56-second recharge, which is not bad. That's as good as it's going to get, guys, until we get another set. Can't be any better than that because we're on triple recharge. All right, so we're done for now. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this is City of Heroes on the Rebirth server.